The opinions expressed on this show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individuals. To determine which investments or solutions may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, financial advisor, or tax advisor prior to investing. Securities offered through Kestra Investment Services, LLC, also known as Kestra IS, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Kestra Advisory Services, LLC, also known as Kestra AS, an affiliate of Kestra IS. Pleasant Wealth, LLC is not affiliated with Kestra IS or Kestra AS. Neither Kestra IS or Kestra AS provides legal or tax advice. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to Our Community with Whitney Prather. Learn about what's happening in Stark and Tuscarawas counties and the surrounding areas. We're going to highlight interesting people, businesses, organizations, churches, events, and even more. Stay tuned. Today, I'm speaking with Liz Hand of Pleasant Wealth. Liz has worked as a financial planner and wealth manager with Pleasant Wealth since 2010. With a knack for retirement income design and women's finances, Liz shares complex financial ideas in practical terms. She has a Bachelor of Science in Financial Management from Mount Vernon Nazarene University, a Master of Science in Health and Human Development focusing in family financial planning, and the Certified Financial Planner designation. Involved in the community in various capacities, Liz serves as a board member for Lighthouse Ministries, who works alongside Canton Southeast families and Broken Restoration, who connects recently widowed or divorced women. She is also an active member of Women's Impact in First Mennonite Church in Canton. Liz and her husband Nate enjoy raising their sons Mason and Brennan. A weekend with free time finds them enjoying downtown Canton eats and events, camping, and dreaming of getting to more national parks. Hey, I'm joined by Liz Hand. I'm so excited to talk to her about budgeting and hearing her story. Liz, how are you today?
I'm doing really well. Looking forward to the holiday season.
Yes. And speaking of, how are we doing? I think that in this pandemic, people can find themselves in a couple of scenarios. Either they're extremely watching their budgets and trying to be careful, or they're just like, whatever, let's just go after. Do you have any tips for us as we head into this holiday season of spending money?
Yeah, I think being hyper aware of where we are at in those two camps, if we're having to be really extra mindful this year because maybe we've been let go from a job or furloughed or just we're tight with our income, being aware of the sacrifices that we have to make in the Christmas season because of that. But then also being hyper aware on the other side, if we're feeling really spendy because we weren't taking the vacations that we intended to, we're extra flush with cash, just not being too, being aware that cash, there's a bottom to that barrel and you can't just like spend all the way down.
Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of find that I'm kind of in the middle of that. Mm-hmm. I want to do something nice because you're right. We haven't taken vacation this year just because we were trying to be extra careful. So, but at the end of the day, I don't want to spend all of the coins on Christmas. I want to definitely be mindful. So, as we prepare for the end of 2021 wow, why am I trying to skip ahead so fast? As we prepare for the end of 2020, head into 2021, I think a lot of people are really trying to get their financial life together. It's just kind of the end of the year. It's what we're thinking of. Mm-hmm. Sometimes building a budget can be really, really intimidating for people. So I'm interested to hear your tips on how to start and where to start.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. And I imagine you will be surprised by my answer. For the person who has not built a budget, they're likely the type of person who doesn't want to have a budget and probably cringes at the word budget. And when they hear a financial planner like myself start to talk about the word budget, they're like waiting for me to throw fire at them. And I don't know, think that I'm just going to slash and burn all of their expenses. And take a pause with that, recognize I'm not going to throw fire or whatever it is. I see that we have to make money fit our personality. And if you're someone who hasn't budgeted in the past and doesn't really like the process, there's a different way that you can go about making your money work for you rather than just letting it kind of slip through the cracks and feeling guilty about it all the time.
Yeah. So that's a mouthful. So making your money work for you, and then also not having that emotional guilt. We go either direction. Maybe start with that guilt feeling, because I think a lot of people do have really negative emotions about their spending habits.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think there's a lot of guilt that people feel like when it comes to their finances, they have to fit in certain boxes. And again, going back to that personality thing, like we're all wired differently. And so I think a great first step for someone is simply to figure out where they are today. No judgments, just maybe looking back the last 3 months. What's a typical month's spending pattern that I have? What do I typically spend on a month-to-month basis? And kind of understanding that number, that's your lifestyle. That was you without any outside force saying what to do or what not to do. That was your lifestyle. And then oftentimes when I see people, they don't quite have a grasp of what their income is, and they don't really have a good grasp of what their outflow is. And so just that's capturing the outflows. And then next we move to the income and just seeing what amount of money is coming in from any resource that we have on a month-to-month basis. And usually what people find is that there is some sort of gap between that number. Maybe I'm bringing in $4,000 a month and my typical spending patterns are between $3,500 or $3,500. And if we know that, then we know that there is a certain amount of money that we could be saving on a regular basis, but we just haven't paid attention to that number. And so I often like to say this is budgeting for the non-budgeter.
Okay.
That person, they just do the quick calculation. This is how much money I'm spending per month. This is how much money I'm earning per month. And then there's a gap. Whatever that gap is, I'm going to start automatically saving.
Okay.
That way, they know I get to live my same lifestyle of the past. And I know that I am saving first, and that everything else is going to fill in on the cracks. And then you can go in a little bit more confidently. No, it's not the spreadsheet budget. It's not the accounting month after month to make sure that all of the pennies or that everything is squared out, but you're automatically saving, which is really the goal of budgeting, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm curious what your thoughts are about that.
No, I love it. I love that you kind of just dispelled some of the thoughts that I've even had about the spreadsheet. So this is just pen and paper. This is you writing down your expenses, writing down your income, and just really getting a clear look of what's going on in your finances. And I also like your approach and how it's not stuffy. It just seems very doable. And I think that that's where we need to really camp out at. So let's just say that gap wasn't, there wasn't a $500 gap there. And, let's just say that it was more narrow. What steps would you ask people to take to kind of make sure that there is more of a gap there for savings?
Yeah. Well, the first place is subscriptions. And the reason is just like...
Don't bark up my tree.
What did you say?
I said, do not bark up my tree. I got plenty of subscriptions. Netflix.
Well, okay. So with the previous example, what I said is whatever that gap is, automate the savings.
Yeah.
Because then it's out of sight, out of mind, and you get to continue living your lifestyle.
Yeah.
Okay. Marketers use that same bypassing of the brain to get you to buy their product and keep paying them month over month, and you kind of forget about it.
Yeah.
And so my guess is that subscriptions can add up pretty quickly for most folks. It's one thing I actively, try not to participate in.
Okay.
If I'm able to spend an annual fee rather than a subscription basis, I usually go towards that because I don't like the bypassing of my brain. I want to know how much I'm spending for something. But yeah, that's where I would look first.
That's a really good tip, Liz.
Yeah. And then the second, let's assume somebody has children. Children also can help bypass our brain because they're nags. And I mean that in all the love of my heart, that they just want the newest things. We're walking through the store. I want that toy. Okay. You're being really loud. I'm going to get that toy for you, or that piece of candy, or whatever it is. Okay. Well, for those folks that find that their money is like slipping away through the cracks of their children, I usually say get a set amount that you want to give to your children every month and base it on history. If you think that you spend on an average, I don't know, $35 on them, $100, whatever it is, figure out if you're comfortable with that number and maybe back it down a little bit. So if it was $100, maybe back it to 50, and then create like a little envelope for them and say, this is your fixed amount. You can choose how to spend it however you want. Once it's gone, it's gone. That is not only a good lesson for your children, but it gives you boundaries on your spending ability.
Yeah. You know what? That would definitely work for me. I have a 5-year-old, and anytime we go to Target, there is a dollar spot experience that we have. And so I think my daughter really does respond well to boundaries like that. And I think she would, even at 5 years old, get that. It's like the timer rule. Anytime we set a timer, I'm like, okay, you have 5 more minutes or 10 more minutes of something. She totally respects it. And she has always respected that. Once the timer goes on, she is fully ready to move on to something else. So, I can see how that could work very similarly. That's very, very interesting. And I love that tip. What else do you have for us?
Your Wi-Fi / phone bill / TV bill, that creeps up over time. And if you haven't checked in on it, it might be pretty high. It requires you to call the company and request and negotiate it down, which do we want to do? Probably not. But that can save $50, $100 a month, sometimes, just depending on how long it's been since you've actually looked at that.
That is definitely new news for me. I did not know that you could call and negotiate a bill if it keeps ticking up. So what does that look like? Me calling them and saying like, hey, over time, I've noticed that my bill has creeped up. I would like for it to go back to this original price, or I'm walking.
Well, and granted, my husband is great at this and I am not, because I have a hard time negotiating. But it's usually being willing to leave the service altogether and letting them know that you're planning to. Maybe you found another alternative service that's at a different price, or maybe you're just suggesting that you're leaving, and asking them if there's any type of discount that they have or current offering that they have that would allow you to stay. Otherwise, you will be leaving. And recognizing that you're taking a risk in that conversation, they might say no, at which you have 2 options: keep going, paying that price, or finding another solution for yourself.
Yeah, but what do you have to lose? You either stay with the service if you are not really willing to. But for my personality, I don't know, I do like negotiating, and I also like being the person that says, hey, I've noticed, so what can you do? Yes. I like that. So that's kind of exciting for me. I would love to be able to just say like, hey, I saved us $20 a month, or whatever that cost could be. So those were fantastic tips, and new to me. I'm just really energized by this conversation because, taking a hold of your finances is very empowering. And so I want all of our guests to know that having a healthy financial relationship is strengthening to your family and to yourself. So, but I'm interested to know about you, Liz, and your story and how you got into this business. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. So I work at Pleasant Wealth. I'm a certified financial planner. And with that, I work for my dad. So my dad started in the industry in 1998. Our family moved from Lexington, Kentucky to Ohio, where my dad was from, and he opened up Pleasant Wealth. When I was in 8th grade, I did a little bit of summer work for him, like odds and ends around the office, paper shredding, making Excel files for him, just little things to help tidy up his life.
Yeah.
And he allowed me to sit in on a couple of conversations with clients, and I realized just how impactful this work is.
Wow.
So,
wow.
Yeah, that's the early stages.
Very cool. God bless your dad. That's amazing. And that just goes to show that how we model our life in front of our children really, really matters. Talk to me about why you're excited about the work that you do. You just mentioned that it was impactful. I imagine that you make a huge difference for those that you encounter.
I'm a helper by nature. I'm always trying to find ways to, I see the pain in other people and I want to help in some way. And it always kind of cracked me up. I went to Mount Vernon Nazarene University for college, and it always kind of cracked me up when we were on the campus because the business students were a little bit looked down upon. Like, they're just money hungry people, as where the social work and the religion students, like, they were the more holy or serving type of folks. And it cracked me up because I knew from the experiences that I had how much impact I can have on somebody's life. And through the lens of finances, like, you enter the lifeblood of somebody's home. You understand stories that nobody else will be privy to. You play this role of confidant or counselor while also giving them practical advice on what to do with their money to grow it long term and to provide safety. You enter the conversation when there's a huge life change. And so, that's what makes me really excited about what I do. I try one area of my business that I am growing is working with women who have gone through a big life change, either through death of a spouse, divorce, or are just stepping towards retirement and making that switch. And being able to dig into the fears, the sadness, and how that ties back to the money decisions. I mean, there's just really no conversation like it for me.
Yeah. Wow. If you're entering their life at a transition like that, there are lots of money conversations to be had. I can imagine that not a lot of women, if we're talking about a transition, I don't want to speak in generalities, but it could be that women aren't used to, heading up the finances. And so there's a whole lot of conversations about comfortability.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I think women are newer to the table of talking about money. And historically, I mean, you're speaking in generalities, but that is historically what the truth is. And I always say it's been a delegation of responsibility in the family, that women aren't necessarily as well versed in talking about money or investments because they delegated it. And so if they're in a life change where it's now forced back on them, they're stepping into the driver's seat of their finances, they're causing themselves to step into just a really scary place where they don't know what the outcomes are going to be. They feel like they might not even know the questions to ask. And so, there's just a lot of work to be done with that.
Yeah. So you're kind of stepping in as their money coach, kind of, you're helping them get from point A to point B. How long have you been doing that? And what kind of transformations have you seen in your role as their new money coach?
Yeah. So I've been working in the field for about 10 years, just wrapped up my 10th year in May. But more focusing in on women within the last 4 years. I think the biggest changes or transformations that I see are when, especially if the examples I'm thinking of, there was a death that happened where in the traditional relationship, the husband had passed away and the wife was left with money to figure out what to do with. And what I often find is that for whatever reason, certain personalities of men, they like to, I call them squirrels. They like to put a little money here, a little money there, a little money here. And what happens if the woman is stepping into that conversation after a death, she is having to find all the money first and then figure out what to do with it. And so oftentimes that first 6 months, we're not even really doing much of anything other than finding it and getting it in her name. And just that slow, methodical process of walking through each step relieves a lot of anxiety for women. And I think, as far as transformation goes, when a woman can get to the point where she's excited about the next step, about the way that she's able to deploy her money, to spend it on something that means something really deeply held, a value that she has, that's when I get really excited, because it's gone full cycle.
So today we talked about your story, about how you're helping women. You gave us some really great foundational steps to put together a budget if we're non-budgeters. And I love those tips. But you're going to be coming back on a monthly basis to talk to us about money. And I'm so thrilled about that, because we need space to delve deeper. Tell me a little bit about what we can expect in the coming months.
Yeah, I'm excited about this. I think just having the space to think about new thoughts with money is always a good idea. I'm willing to go any direction you'd like, but with that, one of the main next topics that I think would be interesting to go into is why the treat yourself mantra is killing your financial confidence. And just some of those little pieces of everyday habits that make an impact.
Yeah. So on social media, #treat yourself. you see people with Starbucks every day, heading to the spa all the time. It is definitely important for self-care.
Absolutely.
But when it gets out of hand and your finances become a wreck because of that mantra, we need to sit down. We need to sit ourselves down is what we need to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Liz, I really look forward to future conversations with you. I'm so thankful for the conversation that we've had today. I appreciate you and what you've been able to do for your community, and I'm looking forward to more.
Likewise, Whitney. Have a good one.
Thank you to our guest today, and thank you for tuning in. Cheers. Until next time.